Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 20th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon here. Hawaiian Islands out here is the Pacific Ocean. You can see our weak frontal system falling apart as it approaches the Pacific Northwest as we speak. Maybe a little light precipitation for western BC or some of the higher terrain of western Washington, but not much to speak of here. You just notice the high clouds moving in as we go through the day today. Stronger system out here. It's going to move through Tuesday morning and in through Tuesday. We'll check out those impacts as we go. You can see the high clouds that moved across from the region this morning, casting a nice sunset across the area. Mount Rainier got to put its shadow underneath these high clouds, and a lot of pictures out there on Twitter. Go check them out if you can. Looking a little closer in the GO 17 here, Seattle here. This is Mount Rainier, and it's creating this Carmen vortex street downstream. Some interesting clouds as the flow hits the mountain there, and the flow becomes disturbed downstream. This is that process here of that vortex street, and you can. This is what it would look like on the back side of Mount Rainier as this vortex moved downstream here. This is one of those images. You can see the sun's rays hitting Mount Rainier and the shadow casting along the underside of this cloud deck here, these altocumulus clouds, made for some very nice images this morning. So if you got to see that, it was quite a treat. Looking at Seattle yesterday, you can see 50 degrees, right about average, just a little bit below here, but nice, glorious sunshine again. Looks like 13 days in a row we're going on now, and that's going to continue here probably until Tuesday morning here. So we're going to go today and tomorrow, and then finally break that precipitation, lack of precipitation streak here, and then try to play catch up as we go through late in November. As we do look to return active here, we're just push things back a little bit, but we do have a system coming Tuesday, and this is the Spokane, Washington National Weather Service. Tuesday, snow in the mountains, winters travel over Stevens Pass. It might be just brushing Snoqualmie Pass. We'll see how that goes, but expect some travel concerns as you go through the day Tuesday. You know, Thanksgiving's coming up here. A lot of people are going to be out on the roads here. Taking a look at the weekend air stagnation here, you see a good example of that right here. You can see the winter sun low in the sky supplies less warmth to the Earth's surface. We get less mixing down here. Pollution from wood fires and cars are trapped by the inversion here. Mountains can increase the strength of valley inversions, so you can kind of see what happens there. Possible degradation of air quality in low-lying areas. Now, this is total precipitation the last 2 weeks. You can really see the lack of precipitation across much of the west here. And taking a look at percent of average precipitation back since May, and you can see how a lot of western Washington is just over 50% for much of the area here. And now as you look into eastern Washington, you might go, oh, they got a lot of rain, but not really. This is just kind of percent of average. You usually don't get that much in eastern Washington. So now looking at this is total precipitation falling in the same time frame from May 20th to November 20th here. And you can see not much really, but it's actually not that far off from what western Washington got. So a pretty abnormally dry May through November period here. You can see California down there as well. Pretty lacking in precipitation. Nevada, eastern Oregon as well. We really didn't get much help for that exceptional drought across portions of the east slopes of the Cascades of Oregon also. Now taking a look at what's coming here. Here goes this frontal system. This is this afternoon. You can see this frontal system fall apart. Maybe a little bit of light precip for some of the higher terrain, but that's about it. But then quickly Monday night, the next system rolls in. This one has got more punch to it. You can see some mountain snows going on here, possibly reaching down towards Snoqualmie Pass, maybe a little bit. And you got to watch some of the valleys here when this precip moves over. You could get some of these valleys that are locked in the cold air here, and you could start out with some freezing rain. So if you're out and about traveling, you got to watch out for that. But again, some snow for the mountains, especially as you can see through Idaho and Montana here. Probably I-90 is going to get some snowfall in some places as well. And like it said in the Spokane National Weather Service graphic there, Stevens Pass also. Then a stronger system is going to move north towards Haida Gwaii there, and we'll take a look at that here in a little more detail in the extended forecast in a moment. This is looking at yesterday afternoon's total precipitation. So the weak frontal system kind of falls apart as it reaches us. Then you see Tuesday's system really start to barrel down through western BC, Vancouver Island, and bring some good precipitation to the Olympics, the Cascades. Seattle might get up towards a half an inch here. Portland probably going to get some precip, but you can see how the precip gradient kind of cuts off there as you get towards the Oregon border here. Maybe a little bit for the Oregon Cascades and the coastal range. We add a little bit here with the system, mainly moves north here. That's that warm front from the next strong system that's going to move by. And then we start to get another strong frontal system potentially through Friday, which we'll look at here again. But you can see the European, once we go on in towards next weekend and next week, it does show precipitation getting all the way down to California, pretty good amounts all the way through the Oregon Cascades as well. And it goes without saying here along the coastal areas of BC, Vancouver Island, Olympic Mountains, Washington Cascades, good amounts. You can see the rain shadow effect going on there for eastern Washington, however. Now, taking a look here, this is the NAM 3KM. Here goes that frontal system, very weak, just kind of falls apart as it reaches the coastline there. Maybe a little bit of light precip around the area, but not much to speak of. Then here comes Tuesday's system here. Now we go into Tuesday morning. You can see the frontal system come into the area here. Some pretty good precipitation amounts, even down towards Seattle. Some of the Puget Sound, probably going to get decent amounts. Lesser as you go south. You can see some of the mountain areas getting some precipitation in the form of snowfall here as well. And we got to watch some of these valleys. Like I said, could be some frozen precipitation with the cold air trapped around out there as well, even freezing rain as possible. Now, this is average temperature from average here for the last couple of weeks, too. You can kind of see we're between -8 and -4 for much of the region here, and even colder for eastern Washington, some of the higher terrain as well. And look at Montana, really been much below average here for these last 2 weeks across the region here. So I just thought I'd show you guys this. Much of the West kind of locked in this cooler air mass as we've gone through November. Now, taking a look here, this is the the European, versus the European. I wanted to show you guys what happened yesterday. This is the ensemble control. As we go through, you can see pretty good agreement on that Tuesday system here, shown there. Pretty good gradient there at 18,000 feet. Brings that frontal system through, and then you can see that yesterday morning's European here brought this pretty strong ridge across the area here, and it kind of kept this system at bay. But now look at the differences here. This is pretty unusual for the European. You can see the Gulf of Alaska troughing here, big polar lobe starting to impinge on the Pacific Northwest here. Much more active weather here on yesterday afternoons versus yesterday morning. So big changes there, and you can see why we have such low confidence in the extended forecast through later this upcoming week. Because look at this. This is just huge impacts for the Pacific Northwest here versus a ridge on just the main run before. And then as you can see, Gulf of Alaska troughing continues to drive systems through the Pacific Northwest. So I'm looking for a few days of consistency, or at least a couple days. I mean, this is a pretty dramatic change here from yesterday morning to yesterday afternoon's run, as you can see, with the potential for even a windstorm here if that were to verify. But that's just kind of showing you guys the issues we're dealing with right now. We're getting some pretty nasty changes here run to run, so we have low confidence in what's coming up. Now, taking a look here, you can see Seattle, Tacoma, blustery with the Tuesday system on into Tuesday afternoon. And then there's some potential upcoming this weekend here for a windstorm. It's been highlighting a few big windstorms in this time frame here. But again, confidence is extremely low right now at this point. So we're just going to continue to watch that. It's still out in fantasy land at this point. Fantasy means not likely to happen yet. Very low confidence. So this is Seattle, Tacoma. You can see now that we've upticked a little bit here. The control and the mean are closer to a ½ an inch. They were closer to a quarter of an inch yesterday. So we brought that precipitation amount up a little bit here in the model runs. And then you can see kind of the mixed bag here, and the control showing some big precipitation coming up there through early December as it looks to remain, or at least become active and remain active as we go through early December here. But we'll see how that goes. Again, I'd like to see at least a couple days consistency on what's coming here before we start getting too excited about what's coming up here towards the end of next week. Now, looking at down towards Eugene, the control run showing 1.5 inches in a 24-hour period, an inch there as we go through late November, and then another good rainy system, but not much with the first system here coming through on into this goes on in through Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. Not much precipitation with that first one. So we're still a ways out here. This is November 27th before we get really any meaningful precipitation back down towards the southern Oregon area here. But we'll watch that as we go. GFS, pretty good agreement with the European here, saying ½ an inch for Seattle, then a little bit of a break here midweek, as then we potentially bring in another system as we go through later this week into the weekend here. This is Portland International. You can see pretty seasonable temperatures. Pacific systems start to move back in here, and you can see those overnight lows warm up a bit here. And I'm not putting much stock in anything in the extended right now, but it does show us cooling down a bit. We'll just continue to watch that for now. Now, taking a look here at the northern hemisphere, you can see Alaska, Hawaii, Pacific Ocean. There's Washington, Oregon, BC there. There's the Aleutian Islands. This is Siberia and Russia out here. This is the North Pole. There's Greenland. Now, check this out. This is surface temperature. And I mean, Siberia and most of Russia is just locked in this extremely cold air mass out there. And if I put this in motion here, you'll notice the diurnal and the nocturnal changes don't really mean much here across Siberia, as these temperatures remain extremely cold, kind of hogging all the cold air there. But we do look like we are going to return to some active weather here coming up, at least towards, we're going to get a nice system here on Tuesday morning and Tuesday, and then potentially another good storm here on Friday. But at some point during the winter, we can get cross-polar flow and start to introduce some of this colder air back into North America here. So that's something I'll be watching for through the extended as well. This can sometimes help us if Siberia starts to store a lot of cold air and we get the right ridging out here over western Alaska. We can start to introduce some of that back down in towards the Yukon and British Columbia and Alaska here through the winter. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, that's just purely speculation at this point. But yeah, I'll just run this through a few times here, and you can kind of see the diurnal and nocturnal heating and cooling here for portions of Africa, for example. You see the overnight cooling. Sun comes back up, warms things up. Nighttime, daytime, and you can see we really don't get those fluctuations across the North Pole at this time of year because the sun's rays are just too shallow. It's not going to warm up this area much. The further south you go, of course, the sun's rays become more direct and you get those diurnal and nocturnal fluctuations here. It's just kind of an interesting look at things as we just let it run through there. You can kind of see that cold air is kind of hanging out, not really budging. Now, anyway, this is looking at an infrared satellite here of Russia. You can see this is showing up. It looks almost like high clouds. That's just how cold the air mass is. It's showing up as cold as some of these really cold cloud tops here in the upper atmosphere. It's kind of an interesting look at things here. This is Japan out here, and you can see some tropical disturbances moving around down towards Southeast Asia as well. So if you guys didn't see this yesterday, also this was put out November 18th, 3 to 4 week precipitation outlook. This is for December 13th through the 3rd through the 16th. You can see here we have that above average signal here for the Pacific Northwest and the below average signal here for temperature. So maybe we'll be on to something here. It looks like we are going to be active into early December here. I'm still, you can probably hear the skepticism in my voice here as we have poor confidence is what's coming on through next week. But the Tuesday system is a good bet. That's what's coming. High clouds tonight, very light precipitation, maybe a little bit around BC and Western Washington, but not much to speak of. Then the system Tuesday. And then we're watching for a potential stronger storm as we go through later next week and on into next weekend. And we'll continue to report back on that. By tomorrow, if we have good model consistency, we can start to get a little bit more excited on what may be coming Friday on in through the weekend. But until then, we just have to kind of wait and see. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves as you see what happens here sometimes with these model runs. So anyway, yeah, hope you guys are having a good day. Thanks to all my new members signing up here, and thanks to all my new subscribers. We're over 13,000 now. You guys make this channel possible. You make it worthwhile coming on here every day and doing these briefings. So leave some comments below, click like, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and we will do this again tomorrow.